Prison is supposed to be the final stop, a place where choices end, where freedom is replaced by routine, where every movement is watched, recorded, controlled. Steel doors do not ask questions. Concrete walls do not listen to excuses. Once you are inside, the system promises one thing: you are not leaving. But history proves something uncomfortable. Prisons do not stop everyone. They only stop those who think like prisoners. This is the true story of a man who never accepted that rule, a man who did not fight the system. He studied it. His name was Pascal Payet. France, late 1990s. Pascal Payet was not famous. He was not in headlines. He was not a criminal celebrity. He was worse. He was invisible. Authorities described him as cooperative, quiet, emotionally controlled. Inside prison, that is the most dangerous personality. Because anger is obvious. Fear is obvious. Silence is not. The court sent him to a high-security prison, designed specifically to prevent escapes. Cameras covered the yard. Guards rotated shifts. Movement was logged. Everything was documented. On paper, it was perfect. In reality, it relied on one assumption: that the prisoner would eventually break. Pascal never did. From the first day inside, he behaved like a model inmate. No complaints, no arguments, no emotional reactions. He followed rules so perfectly that guards stopped paying attention. That was the first mistake. Because Pascal was not adjusting to prison, he was mapping it. He memorized guard routines. He studied noise patterns. He observed response times. Then came the day no one expected. A regular afternoon. No alerts. No tension. The prison yard was active. Then a sound appeared overhead. A helicopter. At first, no one reacted. Helicopters pass over prisons all the time. But this one slowed down. It hovered. And then something fell from the sky. A rope. Long, thick. Deliberate. Before alarms fully registered the threat, Pascal moved. No hesitation. No panic. He grabbed the rope. Within seconds, the helicopter rose. And Pascal Payet vanished into the air. No gunshots. No broken locks. A man simply left prison through the sky. The shock was immediate. The truth was humiliating. Human assumption had failed. Authorities promised tighter rules, more surveillance, more control. They believed they had learned the lesson. They hadn't. Pascal Payet was captured again. This time, the system was angry. They increased restrictions, isolation, monitoring, psychological pressure. They wanted to break his confidence. What they did instead was confirm his belief that the system reacts emotionally, and emotional systems make mistakes. Back in prison, Pascal returned to silence. No threats, no rebellion, just observation, just patience. Years later, the unthinkable happened again. Another helicopter, another rope, another escape so clean that it looked rehearsed. The public could no longer deny it. This was not luck. This was mastery. Pascal understood prison procedures better than many staff members. He escaped not because security was weak. He escaped because human behavior was predictable. By now, Pascal Payet was no longer just an inmate. He was a problem the system did not know how to solve. But that story belongs to what comes next. Because part 2 is where this becomes truly disturbing, where freedom is not always taken by force. Sometimes, it is taken by understanding.
When authorities captured Pascal Payet again, they did not celebrate. They were angry, not because he had escaped, but because he had embarrassed them in front of the entire country. A prison escape is not just a security failure. It is a public confession that control was never absolute. And now, the system wanted revenge. This time, they decided not to just lock Pascal away. They wanted to break him. They transferred him to a different prison. Higher security, stricter rules, limited movement, limited interaction. They believed isolation would weaken him. They misunderstood something important. Isolation only hurts people who need distraction. Pascal needed clarity. Inside the new prison, he was watched constantly. Cameras followed him. Guards logged his movements. Psychologists evaluated him. Every report said the same thing. He shows no emotional response. That should have worried them. But instead, they took it as progress. Prison authorities believed they were finally winning. They believed Pascal was adjusting. In reality, Pascal was doing what he always did, learning. He noticed how guards behaved under pressure. He noticed delays in response time. He noticed something critical. High-security prisons do not move fast. They hesitate. Every decision requires approval. Every action waits for confirmation. That hesitation is invisible to most people. To Pascal, it was an opening. Authorities also made another mistake. They believed the helicopter escapes were the key problem, so they focused on airspace restrictions, no-fly zones, radar alerts, coordination with aviation authorities. What they ignored was human behavior inside the prison. Pascal Payet never tried to escape alone. That is a detail most people miss. Every escape required coordination outside. Resources, timing, trust. This was not desperation. This was organization. Investigators later discovered that during his imprisonment, Pascal maintained indirect communication with people outside. Not phone calls, not messages, patterns, visitors, lawyers, legal delays. Nothing illegal on paper, but perfectly aligned in reality. Prison officials suspected something, but suspicion is not proof. And without proof, the system freezes. That freeze is what Pascal counted on. Years passed. Authorities relaxed. Not because they trusted him, because fatigue set in. People change shifts. Attention fades. And prisons, like all systems, grow comfortable with routine. That comfort is dangerous. Then it happened again. Another escape. Another moment where reality broke expectations. Not dramatic, not chaotic, efficient. Once again, Pascal Payet left custody. And once again, the world asked, how is this possible? This time, the reaction was different. There was no confidence, only damage control. Authorities stopped making strong statements. They stopped promising this would never happen again, because they were no longer sure. Behind closed doors, internal reports admitted something chilling. Pascal Payet was not reacting to prison conditions. He was anticipating them. Every restriction taught him more. Every capture refined his strategy. The system was training him. One senior official reportedly said, "We are not holding him. We are studying him." That statement was never meant for the public, but it explained everything. At this point, Pascal Payet became more than a criminal. He became a question. How do you imprison someone who understands confinement better than you? How do you control someone who does not resist? The system responded the only way it knew how, by escalating. Harsher facilities, more isolation, less human contact. They believed fear would succeed where control failed. They were wrong. Fear does not stop planners. It sharpens them. Psychologists observed Pascal closely. They expected anxiety, stress, signs of collapse. They saw none. What they saw instead was something deeply unsettling. Acceptance, not surrender. Acceptance, as if prison was just another environment, another problem to solve. And then came the moment that changed how authorities saw him forever. Pascal was captured again, for the third time. This time, there was no press conference, no celebration, only silence. Because by now, everyone understood the truth. This man was not trying to escape prison. He was proving something. That systems fail not because they are weak, but because they believe they are complete. And the most disturbing realization was this. Every escape was cleaner than the last. Faster, quieter, more controlled, which meant one thing. Pascal Payet was getting better. By the time Pascal Payet was captured again, something had changed. Not in him, in them. There were no cameras waiting. No officials giving confident statements. No promises to the public. Only quiet urgency. Because now, authorities understood one thing clearly. This was no longer about stopping escapes. This was about containment of an idea. Inside government meetings, the language shifted. They stopped saying prisoner. They started saying risk. They stopped asking, how do we stop him from escaping? They started asking, how do we make him irrelevant? Their solution was extreme. Pascal Payet was transferred again. This time, not to a normal high-security prison, but to a facility designed for psychological shutdown. Minimal human contact, limited daylight, restricted movement, a place where time feels undefined. Authorities believe that without stimulation, without routine, without interaction, even the strongest mind would collapse. They were wrong. Again, observers expected deterioration, stress, confusion, loss of focus. Instead, Pascal adapted faster than expected. Because for him, isolation was not punishment. It was silence. And silence is where planners thrive. Guards reported something unsettling. Pascal did not complain. He did not protest. He followed every rule. Too perfectly. He moved only when instructed. He spoke only when spoken to. It made staff uncomfortable. Because compliance without fear feels unnatural. Psychological evaluations were conducted. Experts looked for patterns. They found none of the usual signs. No anxiety spikes. No emotional breakdowns. Instead, reports mention words rarely used for inmates. Calculated, detached, observant. The system had a problem. Isolation had removed chaos, but it had also removed distraction. Pascal Payet had nothing left to do but think. And while authorities believed they had cut him off from the outside world, they underestimated something critical. Isolation does not erase influence. It delays it. Somewhere outside prison walls, people were still watching, tracking news, studying movements, waiting, because every escape Pascal made had never been spontaneous. They were timed, coordinated, precise. Inside the prison, small things began to happen. Minor delays in response, confusion during shift changes, moments where procedures overlapped. Nothing dramatic, but enough. Authorities dismissed concerns. They told themselves, this is different. He cannot escape from here. They had said that before. Then came the realization that shook internal confidence. Security audits revealed that escape planning was not limited to physical movement. It involved anticipation, knowing when guards hesitate, knowing when supervisors delay decisions, knowing when systems wait for confirmation. Prisons do not fail instantly. They fail slowly, and Pascal Payet understood that better than anyone who worked there. What terrified authorities most was not another escape. It was the possibility that Pascal no longer needed to escape, that simply being inside was part of his strategy. Because every day he remained imprisoned, the system invested more resources, more attention, more fear, which meant more mistakes. At this point, officials considered a drastic option: permanent isolation, a near erasure from public record. No interviews, no mentions, no updates. They believed that if the story died, the threat would die with it. This decision marked a turning point. The system had quietly admitted something. They could not defeat him publicly, so they would try to bury him quietly. But here is the detail most people never hear. Even during extreme isolation, even under constant monitoring, Pascal Payet continued to behave exactly the same. Calm, focused, unchanged, which meant one thing. Either he had accepted permanent confinement, or he was waiting. Staff began to fear patterns they could not explain. Why did incidents cluster around specific dates? Why did equipment checks fail during specific shifts? Why did confusion rise without visible cause? No single mistake was large enough to trigger alarm. But together, they formed a shape the system recognized too late. Because systems do not collapse when attacked. They collapse when confidence turns into assumption. An assumption had returned. This was the moment authorities feared the most. Not another escape, but the realization that if it happened again, they would not be able to explain it. By the time authorities prepared for what they believed would be Pascal Payet's final containment, they were no longer confident. They were cautious, and caution is not strength. It is fear with a uniform. Pascal Payet was no longer treated like a normal prisoner. He was treated like a problem that could not be solved, only managed. His name stopped appearing in public reports. Journalists stopped receiving updates. Even internal documents used coded language. Not because they had regained control, but because they had lost it before, publicly, and they could not afford that again. This time, the prison chosen for him was extreme. Multiple security layers, restricted access, special guard rotations, every movement logged, every interaction monitored. On paper, this was the end of the story. In reality, it was only the final phase. Pascal Payet did not rush. He never had. He waited, because systems do not collapse when pushed. They collapse when they relax. And relaxation always comes from familiarity. Guards change shifts. Supervisors trust procedures. Days become predictable, and predictability is the enemy of security. Then came the final escape. Not loud, not dramatic, no helicopter this time, which made it worse, because it meant something far more disturbing. The system did not fail from above. It failed from inside. Details of this escape were never fully released. What is known as this? Procedures overlapped. Approvals were delayed. Responsibility passed between departments. No one acted immediately, because everyone assumed someone else was responsible. And in that gap, Pascal Payet disappeared. Again, no alarms in time. No clear footage released. No clean explanation. Only silence. This time, authorities did not promise anything. No press conference. No confident statements. Only a quiet acknowledgement. They had lost him. For good. Internally, Pascal Payet was labeled something rare. Uncontainable. Not because he was violent, but because he exposed something the system never wants to admit. That control depends on belief. And once belief is broken, walls mean nothing. After his final escape, something changed. The system did not chase loudly. It searched quietly. No massive manhunts. No dramatic announcements. Because another failure would have destroyed credibility completely. Years passed. Sightings were reported. None confirmed. Some claimed he left the country. Others believed he lived quietly under a new identity. And then there were those who believed he was hiding in plain sight. What makes this story truly disturbing is not where Pascal Payet went. It is what he proved, that prisons are not defeated by strength. They are defeated by understanding. Pascal never overpowered guards, never blew up walls, never demanded attention. He studied behavior. He waited for hesitation. He exploited assumption. And that is why the system fears stories like this. Because they do not show chaos. They show precision. They do not show rage. They show patience. Even today, no official statement confirms his final status. No closure. No resolution. Just absence. Which leads to an uncomfortable thought. What if Pascal Payet never wanted freedom in the traditional sense? What if he wanted proof? Proof that no system is complete. Proof that no structure is perfect. Proof that control is fragile. Because the most dangerous people are not those who break rules. They are the ones who learn them better than the people enforcing them. Somewhere, Pascal Payet may be living a normal life. Waking up, going to work, blending in, or perhaps he vanished completely. The truth is unknown, and that may be the point. This story does not end with a capture. It ends with a lesson that the strongest prisons are still built by humans. And human systems always have limits. Because in the end, Pascal Payet did not escape prison multiple times. He escaped certainty, and once certainty is gone, nothing feels secure again. This was not just a prison escape story. It was a warning, and most warnings are ignored until it is too late.